Isabella was born in 1240 AD in a small village in medieval England. She was the second youngest child in a poor family that lived in a small rundown cottage on the outskirts of the village. Her parents did their best to provide for the family, but they struggled to make ends meet. Isabella's father was an alcoholic who spent what little money they had on ale, while her mother spent her time and money on elaborate clothing and jewelry. Because of this, Isabella's older sisters received quite good dowries when they got married. However, this left little to no money for poor little Isabella. When Isabella was old enough, she started helping her mother around the house and doing odd jobs in the village in order to help support her family. Despite being poor and having little education, Isabella grew up to be a beautiful young woman with long flowing red hair and fair skin. One day, a rumor spread throughout the village that a powerful general was looking for a beautiful wife and that he was willing to pay a hefty dowry for her hand in marriage. The general's mother, the marchioness, was said to be particularly fond of Isabella and was pushing her son to marry her. Excited at the thought of making some money off of her daughter's marriage, Isabella's mother immediately agreed to the proposal. But when she heard how much the general's family wanted for the dowry, she realized that she didn't have that kind of money lying around. After all, she had spent most of it on expensive dresses and jewelry. Thinking quickly, she went to her husband and told him that they needed more money. Upon hearing this, the drunkard looked at his wife in disbelief. "Where am I supposed to get that kind of money? I spend everything I have on ale," he slurred. At this point, her mother got furious. "You useless drunkard, I'm going to sell our daughter to the church and get the money that way," she yelled. The father was shocked. "Are you crazy? That would be like selling her to God. What kind of monster are you?" he exclaimed. "She be taken care of and will get some money out of it." "Win-win situation," her mother replied. And with that, she went to the local priest and struck a deal. The next morning, Isabella woke up to the sound of people talking outside of her home. She opened the door and saw the priest standing there with 2 guards beside him. "Isabella, I have come to take you to the convent," the priest said. Confused, Isabella asked her mother, "What's going on? Why is the priest here?" Upon hearing this, her mother turned pale. But before she could say anything, the guards grabbed Isabella's arms and dragged her out of the house and into the street. As they walked, people gathered around them and whispered amongst themselves. "What's happening to her?" one of them asked. "I heard that she's going to become a nun," another replied. When they arrived at the convent, the priest ordered that Isabella's hair be shaved off, stripping her of her beauty. Then he led her inside and shut the door behind her. For the next few years, Isabella's life was filled with hard work, fasting, and prayers. She scrubbed floors, washed clothes, chopped wood, and performed other tasks from dusk till dawn. The other nuns treated her horribly and often made her sleep on the cold stone floor. They also forced her to eat whatever food they gave her, even if it was rotten or infested with worms. The head nun was a cruel woman who took great pleasure in making the other nuns suffer. She constantly whipped them and forced them to fast, sometimes for days on end. If any of them complained, she punished them even harder. One day, while walking through the village, Isabella saw a starving peasant boy rum family. She took pity on him and went into a nearby garden and picked some apples for him. She then gave the apples to the boy and watched as he ate them. Suddenly, one of the nuns saw her and ran to the head nun and told her what she had done. The head nun was furious and accused Isabella of stealing the apples. She then locked Isabella in a room and forced her to fast for 10 days. During those 10 days, Isabella didn't eat or drink anything. She slept on the cold stone floor and prayed for God to give her strength. Finally, on the 10th day, a higher priest came to visit the convent. The head nun told him about Isabella's alleged theft and begged him to punish her severely. However, after hearing the case, the higher priest determined that Isabella was innocent and pardoned her. The head nun was furious, but she couldn't go against the higher priest. So she allowed Isabella to return to her duties. However, she made sure to give her the hardest tasks possible. One night, the higher priest came to visit the convent again. This time, he brought wine and food with him. After everyone else had gone to sleep, he went to Isabella's room and told her to come with him. He then took her to his room and locked the door. He then began to assault her. Although she resisted as much as she could, the priest was a powerful man and he overpowered her. He assaulted her repeatedly over the next few months. Each time he assaulted her, he threatened to punish her harshly if she told anyone what had happened. One day, the head nun summoned Isabella to her office. "Why aren't you whipped and bleeding?" she asked. Confused, Isabella responded, "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me. I know you've been stealing things from the convent. Confess now and I'll go easy on you," she said. But Isabella still insisted that she was innocent. So the head nun ordered that she be whipped. As the other nuns stood by watching, the head nun ordered that Isabella be released after 20 lashes. However, when she stopped counting at 10, Isabella knew that she wasn't going to get any mercy from these women. She had no choice but to confess to a crime she didn't commit. The other nuns gasped as Isabella confessed to stealing food, money, candles, and other supplies from the convent. "I'm so sorry for what I've done," she cried. The head nun nodded her head. "It's all right, child. We all make mistakes. Just remember that next time you're tempted to steal, think of the consequences," she said. The other nuns nodded their heads in agreement. Little did Isabella know that this was just the beginning of her punishment. Over the next few weeks, the other nuns relentlessly tormented Isabella. They made her sleep outside in the rain, denied her food, and forced her to do their bidding. One day, the head nun called Isabella to her office. "Get down on your knees, child. It's time for your final punishment," she said. Confused, Isabella did as she was told. The head nun then placed a wooden board over her legs and began to press down on it with all of her might. "What are you doing?" Isabella cried. "This is your final punishment." As Isabella struggled to get up, the other nuns began to laugh. They pointed at her and jeered. "Look at her, she's just like a dog. She can't even stand up after being whipped." Just when she thought that her life couldn't get any worse, it did. A few weeks after her public humiliation, Isabella found out that she was pregnant from the priest's assault. When the other nuns found out, they accused her of defiling holy ground and demanded that she be banished from the convent. The head nun agreed and ordered that Isabella be thrown out of the convent without her clothes. As the other nuns threw her out of the convent, they shouted, "Get out, you dirty animal! You're nothing but a whore and a thief," they screamed. With no place to go and no one to turn to, Isabella wandered the streets until she came across a field where she laid down and fell asleep. When she woke up, she felt awful. Her body was sore from being whipped, and she was pregnant and alone. She tried to make her way back to the convent, but the other nuns wouldn't let her in. They stood at the door and screamed, "Get away from us, you filthy animal. You're cursed," they yelled. At this point, Isabella had no choice but to beg for food and money on the streets. People would throw coins at her feet and tell her to get out of their sight. Men would grab her and try to force themselves onto her, but she would bite and scratch them until they let her go. Eventually, she became so desperate that she was forced to do degrading labor for the villagers in order to get food and shelter. One day, while walking through the village, Isabella came across her family's house. "What are you doing here? You're nothing but a whore." "Get away from me," her mother yelled. At this point, Isabella knew that she had no one left. She was completely alone. Everyone was dying, and Isabella was forced to take care of the sick and dying villagers. She slept in the homes of the infected and buried the dead. She spent her last days alone in a small cottage, and when she died, her body was thrown into the sea along with the other plague victims. And that's the sad and brutal life story of Isabella, a young woman who was sold to God only to suffer for the rest of her life.